Well, thanks for having me back to my hometown, and I see they've added something since I've been here, which is sunshine. So it's nice.
My name is Mike Salisbury, and I fought communism with sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Tear down this wall.
Anyhow, you're talking about contrast. I've done a lot of things, and I'll go over some of what I did, so I don't forget who I'm talking about. This is me, and signed my name on my own picture. Anyhow, I've been involved in motion picture marketing. I've worked on over 300 movies, print and AV, and with a lot of other people, though. It takes a lot of people to do them. These are some of them I've conceived of, or I've finished, or written even some, but mostly all the imagery. This is all live. We put the whole thing together, do storyboards for the whole shoot, and then it's all tabletop. Real mercury. We had to have a team from
Did I catch you at a bad time, Leo?
And advertising. I've been an art director, writer, creative director for a lot of different advertising. This is some of the things I've worked on. Triumph and Levi's, and this is a Gordon Smith logo I created. This packaging, outdoor. MGM Grand, we rebranded that. Came up with this for Honda. And this is a spot we created in a presentation to Volkswagen when they were acquiring Seat, which is a Spanish Fiat. And it was a price point car, but a little bit bigger than most economy-sized cars. And the research showed that people who were going to buy this car were not really interested in cars. And so what we said, we'll just have a commercial with no points, no features and benefits, nobody talking about the car, just enjoying the experience of the car. It's a little bit bigger, it's quieter. So they, I use the term loosely, adapted it later after we left. But it's in contrast to most car commercials because most of them are talking a lot about the car itself.
The all-new Volkswagen Jetta. Sometimes everything just comes together. On the road of life, there are passengers and there are drivers.
Yeah, I've done a lot of music marketing, photography of different artists, album covers, got a Grammy nomination for one. These are some of them I've done. Even Dick Dale's first, which I sold mine. I don't even have it anymore. This is George Harrison's little house in England. This I just found a recent picture I took of the Doors a long, long time ago. I went to Macau to do this. This is to market a show there like and they really didn't want to be too specific. It's kind of like Madame Butterfly meets
The House of Dancing Water at City of Dreams,
so I said, why don't we do it like
premieres
Apocalypse,
September
and have one of the
17th.
dancers come up out of the water. They had like a 200-foot tank. And then for magazines, I worked a lot of magazines, art director, writer, photographer. These are some of them I've worked for, I've designed, written for, taken pictures for. This one is about a trip. It's not about her. It's actually about a trip I took down the Amazon, and it was a pretty rough trip. That's halfway down there. But anyhow, the reason for the trailer at the beginning, that's a documentary we started once, we're starting it again. And whenever I do one of these things, people will come out and say, but this stuff you're doing is all really, it's subliminal, isn't it? You're really poisoning people's minds, and we don't know what we're buying stuff. So rather than come up with answers for that, everybody knows you do it both ways. You come up with ideas, and you also follow the research. We decided to go with that and say, well, no, they first started out the concept they wanted, I was a CIA agent selling stuff to us. I said, we don't need to buy stuff. We need to get other people to buy stuff. So hello. So we're going to talk about contrast. And everything I do, I communicate somehow with contrast. And it's usually a visual metaphor. You combine two things that haven't been combined before and you make a new communication. So take A, CBSI, add B, a tier, and then you get C. This was for a cover when they canceled the Ed Sullivan Show after, 20 years or something. So, we're not doing museum stuff. Whatever we're doing should communicate. So the guy in the street should know about what we're trying to sell. It's Paul Rand, of all people, said that. That's true, you got to communicate. The kiss of death, heroine's kiss of death. Happy birthday, Mickey Mouse. A candle and a big piece of cheese. This is the spirits come back to California, they lose weight, they get a tan, they put on sunglasses. Oh no, it's not sticking again. You saw the bit. Okay, now I know what to do. This was doing all night. There, yeah. Microsoft. The Rolling Stone, one of the things I wanted to do, we wanted to redesign it, turn it into more of a magazine like it is now. And then I wanted to bring more like conceptual art. A lot of things I did with those other magazines, I contributed also articles, a lot of articles about pop culture. And this was the era of fashion jeans, and so I wanted to do a piece on fashion jeans. And Peter Palumbi illustrated this for me, the Rolls Royce lady, and rolled up jeans and socks and platforms. Now I'm showing you the original because, oh no, the reproduction was so bad for Rolling Stone for years. It was offset on newsprint. West Magazine was gravure on newsprint, so you get a finer printing process and you get better results. So I'd go to see them print it in St. Louis in the middle of winter, I think. And the printing plant looked like the prison, you know, where, like a Joliet, where Elwood goes to get Jake out. And you go in there and you watch this thing. Well, in the middle of the run, it'd catch on fire all the time because the presses were too high speed for this quality of paper. Anyhow, I got Tom Wolfe to write it. It was a pretty good piece for them. You got to hit it harder. So what I do is all done with certain technique and certain stratagem. This is a thing I shot sort of in a memoriam to John Lennon being shot. So it's a metaphor. Boy. Maybe I need everybody's $1,000 to get another computer. But he's talking about what Bob Dylan did. They're not intellectual ones. They're designed to make people feel something. I got it. The little arrow has to go white. So this is another metaphor combining two things. Giorgio's packaging was the yellow gold and white stripes, and they came out with a bath product. So we put this together with yellow and white bath water. Even the water coming out of the faucet is gold and white. This is, that's live. It's to show, how natural Neutrogena is, that the snail can be on it. This is a piece from Clayton Moore, who was Lone Ranger on TV and radio. Rather Corp either bought or they sold all the rights to the Lone Ranger outfit and wouldn't let him wear it anymore. But he still wore the mask wherever he went. So. But style can be a metaphor also. You can say, it can allude to what something is by the way it's designed. Especially now, I think people have more awareness of different styles and different designs. It's got to be down there. So a cover I did on Pop Artist, Von Dutch, I had him paint this cover for me. It's a motorcycle tank, and sign it with his famous signature. And I shot this of him doing it. And when I was a kid, I used to ride my bike over where he painted at George Barris's. And then this is me trying to be Von Dutch when I was a kid. And fine art. This is a cover of West that Ed Ruscha painted for me. And it represents to him the West. That's the horizon, and that's a wave splashing up, making the lettering for West. And that's all hand lettered, painted. It's a pretty big painting. And then this is, at that time, I shot him in his studio. And you're probably looking at from $2 to $4 million worth of work in that back wall at today's prices. But as style again is another metaphor. Here we have Playboy, where I worked on this issue, James Bond girl. But you take basically what's a skin magazine and class it up with really good design and writing and printing and sort of give it a nicer wrapping. And so years later, Larry Flint wanted to come out with a magazine, and the line for it was, "It's not your father's Playboy." So we came up with this design and shot this, and I took my girls. And they were both like about 7 and 8 to see this blonde transformed into this. And I didn't bother to explain the Band-Aids to them. I don't think they'd get it. Then part of the redesign of Rolling Stone, the first thing Jan Winter asked me to do when I went there is, you got to fire Annie Leibovitz. I go, why should I fire Annie Leibovitz? And because this is the days of film, processing, prints. She shoots a lot, and rang up a lot of bills, and would leave cars abandoned on the street, rent a cars, go get an airplane. So I said, here, why don't we just get her organized? My cousin's a producer, and I brought him up from Newport. And then he got her on budgets, presumably for a while, and worked on getting her pictures resold to make money for the magazine, and then got her off of all the smaller things, the smaller venue performances and smaller acts. In the meantime, these two didn't want to be shot like Annie shot John and Yoko, writhing naked on the floor. So Francesco Scavullo shot this. I was the first art director at Surfer, and I did cartoons and laid the magazine out, and did ads and wrote. And then years later, I was asked to redo surfing. I think we did it for 2 generations, and this is one of them. Because Surfer was aging and graying and getting older with its audience, and we repositioned surfing to be younger. And then we did some fashion spreads, and again, targeted younger. This is live. They're all buried in the sand. And then changed the look of surf advertising, because most of it was pretty schlocky since it ever started. You know, it was usually a pair of trunks on somebody. And this I shot for Gotcha with no logo or anything. That's Shane Horan. And that was the ad. Just recently we did this for O'Neill along with some other ads. That's live. That's a trunk and shorts that they have that dry instantly. So you can take them in the water and come out with the water. And they dry. This I did, it was sort of during the psychedelic era, and it was a club in Hollywood, and they wanted me to do a poster for them. Well, I didn't want to do the same thing they did in San Francisco because I couldn't do it very well. I wanted to take a picture. So this is Anitra Ford, she's a Vogue model, and then I had her painted, and then I shot this out to Topanga Canyon, and then I did type that had nothing to do with psychedelic. This is positioning with style. This is for Triumph. Triumph's, brand history is they sleep for the Wild One and all the James Dean and Steve McQueen, and so we brought back that imagery to sell Triumph. And the line, this bike has a story. I was riding a Triumph I have, and I pulled into on Sunset on the beach, a gas station, and this guy in full colors comes over, and a cigarette hanging on one side of his mouth, he's a Vato, and he says, he says, that bike has a story. It's a great line. I'm stealing it. So hopefully he doesn't read, never found it. This is for that show, the water show. And again, they didn't want any literal image from the show. And so I had a great unit photographer there, and he did this for me. I think he did it all on the camera. We did the whole, I'm going to rush now, but just people ask where jobs have gone, where time has gone. I went over there for a week, scoped out the show, met with the director, figured out a concept for the TV. He started shooting. He had to go to Hong Kong, bring over this big high-speed underwater camera. I came back a week from Sunday. In 3 days, we finished 3 presentations, a finished campaign, and a finished teaser campaign. That took 3 of us. So that's where everybody went. We didn't have FedEx. We didn't have anybody. We just sourcing things. This, we did hundreds and hundreds of concepts for Jurassic Park. This is one which is a little more literal, and I thought and it makes for good merchandising. And I was driving down Sunset Boulevard one day from a meeting, and I go, geez, who did that crappy letter? I know Chip Kidd did the dinosaur, but I said, that stuff really sucks. So we have done so much work on this for years. I went back and I looked in our files, and here I had cut this out myself by hand and put it together on a Xerox machine. And I go, oh, guilty. They want so much, you just got to keep coming up with things to show them. And it came out okay. Spielberg wanted a shape around it to hold it, because it was easier to merchandise. You can make a decal out of that shape. You can make an emblem out of that shape. It's also simple addition to sort of make a metaphor, the simple addition to make contrast. I was flown to New York to be interviewed to be creative director of L'Oreal. And I rushed out, and I had worked on cosmetics before, but I really didn't know, and I should have done a little homework. I'm sitting there in this meeting room with this guy, I think it was the CEO, and I said, "Are you French? Is L'Oreal French?" "Oh, yes, we're from Paris." And I said, "Well, why don't you tell people?" And so they did. I should have sent them a bill. Anyhow, metaphors make complex ideas easy to understand. I worked at Foot Cone, and they had Levi's account. And Levi's was so big by this time, and they had never really called men's basic 5-pocket jeans anything but basics. And they had never made a women's basic. They always made the women's at that time were high-waisted with the zipper on the side. And the women's fashion jean market was just taking off, and they wanted to get a piece of that. So all my life, I'd known when girls would get boys' Levi's and shrink them and tailor them. But they came out with one that was going to be a replica of the basic men's. I said, well, first of all, before we get into this, why don't we name the basic men's something? And they said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, there's the stock number. Register that, trademark that. That is the name of the basic 5-pocket blue jean. Now we've got something we can say is made for women is the basic men's. But I needed a metaphor to say that. So I took this scene, which I think is like the most sort of male-oriented jeans-wearing scene in history of James Dean the Giant, and created a key frame to show the concept. It never tested, but we did the commercial anyhow.
For the first time in history, Levi's shrink-to-fit button-fly 501 jeans are cut especially for women. In the only shrinking denim that tailors itself in the wash to fit every curve, like no denim you've ever worn. Shrink-to-fit 501s, now in the junior department from Levi's Women's Wear.
Travis, you're a year too late!
So I directed that, and Vilmos Zsigmond shot it for me, and I went by something what John Huston said once. As long as you get a good DP, you can take a nap and go to sleep, because they'll do it. So anyhow, going back to this whole CIA theory and this everything we do is a conspiracy to twist people's minds, the Wall Street Journal even bought that. This is despite Levi's secrecy, here's the complete story on Trav. All it was is just a device to fill some time so we could show how they fit her butt. That's what 5-pocket jeans are all about, is to fit. So we went and did another one based on Clint Eastwood. And then I did a whole campaign concept for Foot Cone to keep the account. They're starting to lose the account. And I said, let's just find every sort of famous pop culture figure wearing these and wearing just 501s, the basic jeans, and that's all we're going to do. So this is Pete Townsend and just the red tab, and Steve McQueen and just a red tab in Levi's. And this is the Ramones, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, in the same jeans for every picture. So A plus B can also equal innovation. I saw The Wiz, and I thought, this is unbelievable. Michael Jackson would just had to hold himself down not to overpower everybody else. So you take A, and you take B, and then I had a fashion illustrator do this for me. And I went to present it. I made the call first. I called his agent. I said, I really want to work on something for him. He's going to be huge. He said, come over because we're having problems with this next album cover. So I went and saw it. His album cover looked like, it looked like, a sale at Mervyn's isn't around anymore. But that's what I thought of it when I did. So I show it to the agent, this building at Sunset in Doheny, big high ceiling. And he goes, I don't know what to say. I don't get it. And then from the back, there's a big velvet drape. And this little voice squeaks out and says, I like it. So he comes out, and he said, I'll do it. He said, the only thing I really want to do is I want to wear white socks. And I said, if you're going to wear white socks, then I want you to get some loafers, wear the white socks, roll up your pants, and pull them up in your pockets like Gene Kelly. So we went out to shoot it. He wanted to shoot it at the Hollywood Planetarium, which I knew the architecture was going to overpower the whole thing, but that's where Rebel Without a Cause was shot. He wanted to shot. He was late. He just got his license, 21. new rolls all smashed on the sides, ran up, changed in the ladies' room, and I said, remember this? This is what we want. So we went back, went to a photo studio, and I'm sitting there, I can't think of a way to make this work. I went out in the alley, and there's a wall and a loading dock, and I said, well, this looks even more theatrical than just having them standing around. It looks like the back door of a Broadway theater. So I had him stand there, and then later added the glow around the socks and get a little animated with the gloves. So then that works. I get a call from the agent. He says now he wants 2 white gloves. And I said, how about 1? So he stuck with 1. The contrast. So you take him then, it looks like van upholstery actually, to, I think this is the Victory Tour. And he went back to then adapted to all black and white. And that became sort of his brand mark. Then he took the idea of the glow I had airbrushed around the socks and had Bob Mackie make these so that they'd glitz. And that look became so iconic that somebody else could wear it and you still get who it was all about. So I've shot a lot of different personalities and celebrities. This is when I was working with George Harrison. And these are some of them. It's Alfred Hitchcock and this was writer Tom Wolfe. Ed Ruscha again, Peter Fonda. Joe DiMaggio, Ruby Keeler, Pugsy Pearson the Gambler, Nodie Cohen, the rodeo tailor, Evel Knievel, Larry Flint, Charles O'Connor, Charles Schultz of Peanuts, John Voight, Lee Taylor Young, designer Rudy Gernreich, Gene Kelly, Michael Douglas, Brenda Vaccaro, Wilt Chamberlain, Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, Trigger, and Bullets in the back. Jack LaLanne, Billy D. Williams, Claus Oldenburg, Dalton Trumbo, Andy Warhol, Bobby Kennedy, Von Dutch, Jan Wenner. We designed the logo and all the uniforms for that. At Peters, and this is me directing that spot with the boxing gloves coming in. And then some of the people I worked for and with. And some more shots. Truman Capote, Ross McDonald, mystery writer, Francis, Sam Bottoms, Frederick Forrest, Martin Sheen, and Michael Jackson. And all of them were different situations. I went to England for a week at Henley-on-Thames to do this cover, and I had to shoot everything, send it into London, get it processed, come back and edit because we were on such a timetable. And there was no time to like glamorize the thing and do any retouching. And it was a little rough shooting him at that time, that period. And so this is through his greenhouse window to diffuse the whole thing a little bit. It was almost left here shot with a soft filter. This one, I worked real hard because I wanted him to get in that, I wanted Alfred Hitchcock to get in that whole thing like his logo, with all the double chins and the something. And I kept moving and moving and moving and twisting, and I got the shot I wanted. Only last year did I realize he's a director and an actor and knew exactly what I was doing. This is Truman Capote who was directing me. He wanted to look as outrageous as he did on the back of his first book cover, which was considered to be a scandal, when he was laying on a couch. And so I said, okay, we'll do it. And I said, we want to set up everything with all these colors, though. So I set it up with the flowers on his patio in Palm Springs, and we got the colored blankets out, and he put these outfits on it. I worked on that all day, and then I finally got the picture I wanted. Then Andy Warhol came out, and I was covering him for an article. And so I went to meet with him, and they came out with a whole crew at the expense of Columbia Pictures to have Columbia make a movie, an Andy Warhol movie. Well, Columbia turned it down because it's not exactly family material. So I asked him what he wanted to do. He said he wanted me to photograph him in a limousine and all his people going through the Paramount gates like Nora Desmond and Sunset Boulevard. So I said, okay, we'll do it. So they get the limo, everybody gets stitched up, they go out, they didn't get any security, advanced security clearance, so they couldn't get in. I said, never mind, we'll shoot outside. And so that's him and this whole crew, Joe D'Alessandro, Morrissey, and everything in front of the gate. And I just sold one of these prints, and that white over his eyebrow is actually his eyebrow. This is another one, no problem shooting. This was for Vogue, I think, Vogue or Bazaar. She'd do anything, you know, she's just, like most of them are talents, and they're actors and actresses and performers. And then this is one of her and I when we were working on the Rolling Stone thing about jeans, because I had her on the inside, modeling jeans. And this, talk about contrast. Somebody said, I put this on Facebook, somebody said, geez, you're how lucky to find one guy with Sly on his hand and another guy with Stone on his hand. Because the two hands are completely different. This may be the last picture of Bobby Kennedy standing alive. This is on that night when he was assassinated, and I was there at the hotel. So, contrast. I got asked to work on Apocalypse Now and create an identity for Marlon Brando's character, because he just showed up and there he was. And there was no pre-story to say he'd been sort of had got involved in a scandal, but he'd been a war hero. So we built photos of him through his whole life, built family photos. We built Newsweek and Time covers and spreads, Life magazine spread, and I went to all these military bases and got all these documents, like would be his record, and even the record of his problem that he got in trouble all about. So this is the Time cover. And then I went over to watch it being shot, and then I was interviewing Francis for Rolling Stone, so I was taking pictures there, and then here's some of my pictures while I was on this search for Colonel Kurtz.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end. No safety or surprise, the end. I'll never look into your eyes again. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free? Desperately in need pain, and all the children are insane. All the children are insane.
So, the end.